Recently in first year, as we end the term, we're taking what we've learned about chord progression, non-chord tones, everything, and chord spelling, of course, and key relationships, and we're applying it to analysis for contrapuntal textures as opposed to homophonic textures. And we did Bach's fourth Invention, which is the one that goes that one there. And I made a couple videos to support the class for people that missed or for review, and they were really popular on the channel. So I did two, one to talk about the beginning because it's got a formula, and then one just to finish up the rest of the piece. And so now we're having them work more independently to do the same kind of work, but this time on Invention number 8. So I'm making a video on this so that they have that as sort of an answer key or a guideline on how to do things, tutorial on how to do things. This one's actually much easier to do than the number 4 in D minor, but that's also kind of by design so that when they go and they work on their own and they have less teacher interaction and student interaction with each other, that they can be more successful. So let's just, for this one today, we're going to go from the beginning up into, it modulates and changes key and does the beginning of the next section. When you're in a piece of music in this time period, and especially with these inventions, they start in the home key. And in this case, that's F major. And they'll give you, if we're fugues, we'd call them subjects. Some people will call these motives or ideas. They're not long enough to be themes. In this case, it's just 2 measures long. It's this right here. This, right? That's it. And it's actually kind of interesting because it's an F chord on the way up and on the way down. But this first one is arpeggiating up, right? And then it scales on the way down. So it's like 2 sides of the same coin, which is cool. Anyhow, what happens is that usually Bach will state this original subject or idea in one hand and then repeat it again in the other, and that's what he's done right here. And then he'll take off and do sequences and things with it so that he can change key. And when he ends up at the end of this section, he will have not only changed key, but then he'll do a hard cadence right there. The key change will happen a little bit before this, but the actual end of the section will happen with a real distinguishable cadence. And then he'll restate this idea again, but he'll be in a new key. You can see that here's the same idea right there. Arpeggiation up and then scale down. And he's inverted this so that it's in the left hand rather than the right hand. And then it will bounce to the other hand. And so that happens. So we modulate, right? And then we have a new key, and then we do it again, right? And this is usually sequences and things that happen there. And then after that, he'll do a bunch of sequences and take us through other keys and work with the material. And usually what happens at the end of this is that you come back to the home key again, right? And then you'll do the subject or part of it again, and then you'll finish, you'll cadence. And this is interesting because this particular one, he does something a little different here. And so after we get done this section, taking us from the beginning to the first cadence in the new key before the subject happens again, then we'll jump to the end and see how it compares, and I'll come back to that. But usually in this, what we do is we make ourselves the box, right? We say, what key did we start in? And we started in F, it's 1 flat. And then you're going to say, what are my 2 flat keys? And in this case, what's my 0 sharps and flats keys? This is like plus a sharp. This is plus a flat, right? And so C, right? And this would be B flat. These are my major keys that are related, closely related. Relative to this is D minor, right? These are minor. And so this will be A minor, and this will be G minor. And these are places that, especially during this area right here, Bach is likely to run up against. However, when we go from here to our first key arrival point, that is almost always going to be, going to almost always be this. We start here, we're going to go there. If we were in minor, like we saw in the D minor, sometimes it will go back and forth between the relative major and minor. And so that happens. But we're in the key of F major, we expect to go to the key of C. And with that in mind, if you have a look, we start with our F chord here. I think we'll write this in. So this is key of F, and this is an F chord right there. So that's my 1 chord. And this is my F chord right there going down with the scale. So it's still a 1 the entire time. And when we start our restatement here, it's a C chord, right? Right? It's done exactly what it should be doing, the same. And this will be in the key of C. And like I said, we're in the key of C a little earlier than this, but we're definitely in the key of C here. This is a 1 chord right there, like that, okay? But you can also see that partway through here, we're introducing a B natural into the scale as opposed to B flat, and it happens there. It comes back the B flat, but then it happens here and here and here, and this will be set up in the key of C. F scale minus a B flat is a C scale. That doesn't mean every time you see the B natural, it's in the key of C, but eventually we can tell that we're in the key of C. Not only is it scales, but we'll see chord progressions that match up with that as well. Okay, so since we've been able to identify that this is a 1 chord and this is the 1 chord, so arpeggiation and scales, when we look at it here in the left hand, it's in bass clef, but it's the same thing, right? This is my 1 chord right here, and that's going to continue on there. And we can also confirm, because as this is doing the scale down, this is arpeggiating an F chord, and as this is doing the scales down, this is arpeggiating an F chord. And so this is, it's simpler than some of the other ones because it stays on the single chord the entire time. A lot of time Bach will go between the 1 and 5 chord. But in this case, he's just doing that. So we have 1, 2, 1, 2 right there, and they're set off at 1 measure distance. So our original idea actually only is 3 measures long, which is, you know, normally we'd expect 2 or 4 with the repeat, but because he's writing imitation or canon actually at 1 measure, right? This is just a canon at 1 measure. It's going to be compacted. The 2 measures and 2 measures will stack over each other, and we'll only have 3, okay? And, but we still get the underpinnings of 4 measures on the F chord, because this is F chord, this is F chord, this is F chord, and if you look, this is also doing F chord right here. There's my F, A, C, A, and then F and C. So it's still my 1 chord, and that allows Bach to move into the next idea for this, which is this ba-dee-da-dee-da-dee-da-dee-da-dee, right? This, and then he's going to jump down, etc., etc., right? And we can sort of play this game now. If we look, if you're going, well, which notes do I use? This is arpeggiating an F chord. We know we're on an F chord. This is an A and a C, and the B flat is not part of the F chord, right? And this is a pattern that we'll see. So on this next one over, we could expect a similar pattern where the neighbor tone and the neighbor tone are not chord tones. And this is something that will help us to know in a contrapuntal texture what to look at and what not to look at, because we see established patterns, right? And so if we get rid of these notes right here, and it's not 100% perfect always going to work like that, but it's a good start. Then we can see we have an F and an A, and we have a change of clef right there, right? So this is a A and a C. So this is still F, A, C. So it's still my 1 chord right there. It's this great thing that's happening because he's just doing imitative sort of canon things, right? Like this goes down to there, and this comes down. This will come down to there, and this goes down, right? So he's still just playing follow the leader the entire time. And it's great. We're happy to be on a 1 chord. There's differences in contours of the lines, the interplay of inverting the counterpoint so it's in the left hand versus the right hand is interesting to us, and there's a lot of wonderful surface rhythm, and we like arpeggiations and scales, and we like these little sort of things that are like, right? And then when this one heads down to here, just like that head down to there and that head down to there, right? And then this one down to there, then this will go down to here, literally pitch-wise, right? And this will become a new thing, right? And then this one here will end up right down there. So he's playing follow the leader, it's canon the whole time. However, it's not F chord the whole time, although it's been a lot here. Because chords are made in thirds, he can jump this guy down to here and then jump underneath it and it makes an F chord. But the next time he jumps this down to here and there's an F and an A, and we can see that the G is the non-chord tone. You can also see that because this has jumped down to start on the D, we have a different chord here. And so he's actually playing heart and soul in a way, where it goes down by thirds. You know, this song that goes that thing, right? That's happening here. So if we look here, this was FAC. Now by taking this down there, making it the top part of the chord, and this is the bottom part of the chord. I know it's inverted, but in terms of spelling, D, F, F, A. This is my D, F, A chord, right? So this is a D minor, right? And in the key of F, that's a 6th chord, right? And we know that that this looks like Vita instead of DFA. That's kind of funny. And we know that with this coming down here, this is also going to be not part of the chord. It's my neighbor. And we can look at here, and this is going B, G, D, B, and then F. This is a G7 chord, right? And you might say, like, have we changed key? And the answer is not quite yet, because this is going to be coming back to B flat. We're going to have another cadence in F right here, but it's weakening our tonality ahead of time of the key change that's about to happen by making the 5 of the 5 chord happen and sort of chromatically making that weaker, okay? Now here's the first time that we get something different that happens, because if the pattern were to go ahead, this would come down here. And you can see if you fuzzy your eyes that the contour is the same, yes? And then this is gonna come down to here and so on. But if we look, this note, the G and the B, or the G and the B and the G and the B are the same, but then this continues up a G7 chord and this is not part of the G7 chord, okay? He's initiating key change here. So he is gonna follow the leader idea, but after right there, then he's got to make a key change. And so although the materials look similar, the pitches and the resulting chords are different, okay? So G7 is my 5. And if you want, you can make this your lowest one, 4, 3, not in the key, but of 5, so C, okay? And then you still get another one right here, but as soon as we get past this beat, because it's supposed to look the same there, then this changes into a C chord right here. We've got my C, C, G, E, right? E, E, C, and then my B flat right here. This is a C chord, which is my 5 chord, and 7th is right there, back in the key. So this wasn't a key change yet. This was a let's loosen our grip on the tonality by tonicizing the 5 chord, but it's still going 5 of 5 to 5. And there's my 7th right there that kind of confirms we're still thinking or hearing in the key of F, right? The cross relation there. This is my 5, and we can call this a 5-7, right? And that should go to 1, right? 5s go to 1, which is F, which look, we have right there. It lands, right? This is my F chord right there. It's my 1 chord, okay? But again, he wanted to affect the key change. So he loosens our grip on tonality here, gives us here. But as soon as we arrive here, just like as soon as we arrived here, it changed. As soon as we arrive here, it's no longer going to be an F chord right after that. Okay, it's gonna be, well, if you look here, this is my B and D right there. this is starting to, like right from here, kind of this part over. It becomes my G chord. Again, G major. And if you can keep there, it's a G7 chord, okay? And then here, it's more G7 chord right there as well. So you could call this 5, 4, 3, and 5, 6, 5, but it's changed. In other words, as soon as we landed here, he said, good, we paid off our cadence in F, and now we're in the key of C. That's what happened. So you can either just say, now I'm in the key of C by putting that there, or we could call F a pivot chord, and you could say F is 1 in the key of F, and it's 4 in the key of C. However you want to think of that. But mid-flow here, it changes, right? This is one of those great passages where we get from here, and we're doing, where is it here? Right, and there's my 5 chord right there, it goes to the C, right? And then we get that. But as soon as we're there, sorry, I got a pen in my mouth while I'm talking, it goes. Right, it's like this cascade of key of C-ness. 5 chord, which should take us to a 1 chord right here. And if you look, there's my C and my G and my E. So this is my C chord right here, which is my 1 chord. And you can call it 1, 6, 4 if you want. I don't know if that's important because these are running. And then a funny thing, like if you look at just the right hand here, it just feels like a 1 chord. Right? But if you look at the left hand, there's some other chords embedded. And I think Bach is having a good time with both. Like if I had to pick only 1 chord, this would be my C chord. However, I can't help but notice that we land on the A there and we land on the F there. And they can be explained away as on the beat non-chord tones. But if you look at this, especially as we drive to a cadence, the harmonic rhythm speeds up, the change of chords happen. And I think we go from a C chord right there to an A minor chord right there, right? A, C. And then this is going to become an F chord right here. And so he is playing 1, 6, 4, just like that. And then if we're here, it's a D and an F, right? D and an F and a C. This is like a D minor 7 right there, and that's my 2 chord. And so he's playing this game where it's like C down to A minor, down to, but instead of going up to G right away, then he comes down to here. And it happens all very quickly because he's running 1 per beat. So it's like from here we land on our C chord, right? Right? And then it's A, and it's all imitation, right? And then 4, and then 2, and 2 loves to go to 5. And if we look here, there's my G chord right there. That's my 5. And if we look here, it's a C chord, but it's in 6/4 inversion, and that's a 1, 6, 4, C, E, G in the bass. And this together all equals 5. So he's made his key change, went 5, 1, 6, 4, 2, and then 5, 1 right there. Okay. And this is really clever because on the one hand, this can kind of feel like all 1 chord, and this can all feel kind of like a 5 chord with a suspension being held out, right? Or you can look at it on a more beat by beat thing and see the 6 chord and the 4 chord and the 2 chord and then the collective 5 chord right there, giving us a perfect authentic cadence, right? And I think one of the strengths of Bach, in addition to him having strong chord progressions, is that he embeds harmonic, I'm not going to say progressions, but the idea of a progression inside the lines. Like even at the very beginning, I know it's a scale, but he pivots and goes back up and then pivots and goes back up. And in doing so, he outlines the 1 chord, right? And then 5, right? And then 1. Because I know it's just do, so, and mi, which is all part of the 1 chord, but the fact that he stops here and makes me feel like I could harmonize this whole thing as like one chord. Could if I wanted to. Of course, it's not that way. It's going by too fast and it's strung over an F chord. But that 1-5-1, which gives more cohesion to the line and push, contour, like, you know, harmonic push, is embedded inside the line, even though it's just a single chord the whole time. Similarly, down here, although this could be a 1 chord and this could just be a 5 chord, there's my D and my G, right? And there's my F, and this is just a passing note, and this is just a suspension. You can think of it that way. Like, you could play just yourself like this and go, right? Or we can see embedded in every beat here, he's done meta harmonic, you know, work here. So my C chord right there, and then my 6 chord A minor, right? And then my F chord 4, right? And then 2 chord, right? And then 1-6-4, right? Right here. Resolving to the 5. There. And so on, right? Anyhow, that's there. It's very, very simple at the beginning because it's all over a single chord, but we can recognize that he's playing what he's being canon at 1 measure. But when he wants to make his key change and actually break for the new key, he has to break the pattern. He can't just perfectly repeat. He has to adapt it to the new chords that are coming up for his key change. Now, normally we'd be done now and we'd save the rest of this for another video, and we will do another video where we take from the middle here and then we see all the different kinds of sequences and harmonic things in the keys that he goes to. But I want to point out something interesting about the end real quick here. Normally you start in the home key and do what we just analyzed, and then we'd be in the new key, in this case the dominant C, and you'd do another restatement, then do a bunch of sequences, go through a bunch of areas and keys, and then eventually we come home and we have to do sort of a return to the idea again. Now, typical in this though is because the first time we did this, it changes key and goes to a new key. When you bring this back, you usually can't restate it as an entirety. Either you don't try and restate it all as an entirety and you just sort of get an idea of it from the beginning, or you have to restate it and then you have to break it up in the middle and do something different, because you have to say, I'm not gonna modulate, right? And that requires a modification of some kind, right? This is true even when you get out of these little tiny subjects and into themes. When we look at the later classical period, the Mozart, Beethoven, Haydn, those kind of composers, when they do their recapitulation, whether it's a piano sonata or a symphony, they bring stuff back and then they have to do something different in the transitions, or they have to amend the back half of a theme or something so it doesn't change key, because that's one of the features of those pieces, is that the recapitulation repeats the original ideas but stays in the home key, signaling to our ear and intellectually that we're done the piece, that we're not going out again, right? Well, Bach has done something really cool here that's different, and I'll just show you what that is real quick here. We can review it. We get out of all the mid stuff right here, right there. This is an F7 chord right here, right? F, A, C, right? E flat, and this is all doing the same thing as well. It's like I'm down here, and there's my F. It's all this F chord, which then propels us into a B flat chord, because F7 is the 5 of B flat, and this is where we're going to end up right here. And if you look, that makes perfect sense too, because B flat is one of the keys that we'd like to play in. The difference here is that this is the end of the piece right here. We should be ending the piece. We should be in the key of F. Like, why are we not in the key of F? That's where we should be, which was our home key. And what normal would be normal, and we saw this with the D minor, we see this with a lot of, is that you'll get, this happens a lot later and you just get a little piece or an idea of what the stuff we were doing before. Or if we do this, we come through here and then we have to change something so it doesn't change key, right? So it stays in the key of F. Well, Bach has done something really cool here, which is this. The opening stuff, I'm gonna flip this over, you can see this here, and I've got another copy we can look at real quick. The opening thing is in F, and it goes to C, which is the dominant, right? And what he's done here on the return is, instead of being in F at the return, he put himself at the subdominant, or the 5 below. It's not a 6, it's a flat. And that's gonna take us, he's gonna actually just transpose and copy this whole thing wholesale down to here. And he won't have to modify it then, because this one rises by a 5th from F to C. So this one's gonna rise by a 5th from B flat up to eventually F, which will put us in our home key at the very, very end, just like this one did, taking us from the tonic to the dominant. And this is a really cool invention. I don't know that he did it per se, but I think Mozart does it in his last symphony, 41. Maybe the Jupiter, I can't remember which one, but it's a really cool idea. Other composers pick up on this, and they knew their Bach, and so it influences people ahead of time. But just for last sort of, like, this is very cool. If you look, this right here is the same as right here, okay? So this is my 1 chord in B flat, right? And you can see that it's sort of, I mean, it's just transposed exactly the same. And then down here, it gets to the 2-part texture, and this is still B flat, D, and D and F. This is still a B flat. This is my 1 chord, just like this was an F chord right here. And then this all comes down a 3rd. It does exactly the same thing, and this becomes my G minor chord, right there, which is my 6th chord in this key, right, which is exactly what happened here. We went to our 6th chord. It's not even changed, and it's harmonically the same. It's literally the same. So when you learn this, it's exactly the same in terms of memorization and texture and rhythms and everything. And the fingerings are almost identical too, which is really cool. And then we get to here, and this is my C7, which is a 5/7 of 5, right? And that's the same thing that's right there. And then we get to here, and this is my 5 right here with my 7th right there, just like we had right there. And then we land right here, and this is my 1 chord B flat again, 1 there. But as soon as that happens, just like we were on our F right there, as soon as that happens right there, then we've kicked over, and now we're in the key of C. And this is my 5 chord over here. This is my 5 chord right there, except it's a C, right, with the 7th, because we have B flats right there, right there. And, you know, in fact, it's absolutely note perfect the same, except that when we finish the piece, we end with a proper chord there as opposed to a single note right there. But they're identical, which is a really cool thing. So knowing that little trick, it really makes the next video a lot shorter, because we just have this much real estate from there just to here, and then it's just same thing transposed. This is like literally they copied and pasted it and changed the key. So just nice. All right. Hopefully that's fun and useful. The middle part's really cool. I will do another video where we get to the middle part as our class does it mid next week. I'll make a video for that too and put that up.